Good morning, Malibu. Good to hear you. Hello, planet Earth. My name is James Makawa. I'm from Zimbabwe in southern Africa, and I'm living out loud. I'm here to share a journey and a vision and a quest that involves bringing a voice to the voiceless of Africa. It is my passion, it is my vision, it is my conviction. But there's no one man or woman that can do this alone. But I'm going to die trying. What's rather interesting is that, the folks at TED, who are wonderful, who put this together, they say that your presentation has got to be short, it's got to be to the point. It almost has to be like a mini skirt. Short enough to create arousal, but long enough to get your point across. And I'm going to give it one good shot because I'm here to talk about Africa and I've been reduced to a 9-minute soundbite. But that's okay. When I got here this morning, or today, for those of you that are watching in other parts of the world, I thought I had the whole script all figured out. And then I just started talking to a number of people that were arriving, and they were asking me all kinds of questions. Where are you from? How did you get here? What do you do? You speak such good English. And I'm going, okay, the script that I had coming here, I had to throw that out the window. Yes, folks, I learned how to speak like this in the jungles of Africa. So pardon me if I refer to my iPad every once in a while here because I've had to rearrange a few things. Why I'm here is because my vision and my quest is to bring a voice to the voiceless through the power of television and the internet. And by God's graces, by the middle of next year, we will hopefully launch a television network in high definition focused on Africa. For too long, Africa has been misunderstood and totally misrepresented in so many different ways. So the idea here that Africans can actually tell their own story through their own eyes is very, very important. So what I'm going to share with you today is that quest and that journey. And I will start with a video clip very shortly here that will hopefully put you in the place of what this clarion call is all about. Africa doesn't own its own message. It is defined by everybody else. Africa doesn't have its own pictures. Everybody else owns the pictures. Africa has the resources, but guess what? They don't profit from it at all. So through the power of television and the power of the internet, we want to build the largest library of African-inspired content that will send a clear message to the rest of the world. So in starting, let me just, Chris, if I can just have you play the tape of what Africa HD is. Let me tell you, there is nothing more powerful than the inspired. I am truly, truly inspired. The journey I'm going to take you through is a journey of inspiration, of heartache, of hope. There is a lot of hope. But let me just allow the messenger just to give you some background and some context. The digital transition in Africa, creating content for a multi-platform universe, tall order, it can be done, we will get it done. Next slide. How will a multi-platform future transform the way in which Africa tells its stories? Everybody else seems to have figured it out. Africa is the one that's lagging behind. We need to do something about that. Next slide. And for those of you that are geographically challenged, I had to throw this map up there because this is not to insult anyone's intelligence, by the way, but there are 1 billion people on that continent that have 1 billion stories, that have so much to share with the rest of the world. And there are 54 countries. I've at least had the good fortune of being able to travel and work in 25 of those countries. I know the continent very well. And so the inspiration for me a few years ago, very quickly, was thanks to my parents, who are my heroes. They were educated in the United States, brought me here when I was 2 years old. Then we went back to Zimbabwe when I was 5, shortly thereafter. Zimbabwe, by the way, is just right there. Lived through a war, a liberation war. It wasn't a civil war. It was a war for freedom. I understand what freedom means. Folks in this room, don't take your freedom for granted. You don't know what freedom is until you don't have it. We had to fight for it. People had to die for it. And then fast forward, came to the United States when I was 17 years old. Had the opportunity to go to college. I had a great set of legs at that time. Was able to get a soccer scholarship, go to school, and learn how to be a journalist. By the time I was 25 years old, I was a correspondent at NBC News, and I'm going, wow. But it wasn't about me and it was learning a craft and learning how do Americans communicate? How do they send their messages to the world? How do they package? How do they promote? It was a priceless opportunity. And after NBC, I decided I needed to go back to Africa to do something. Went back to Africa. Worked with Gray Advertising and set up a company that was bringing American content and films and movies into Africa. People were hungry for information about Africa. And it was during that time that I was inspired that I needed to do something about taking the African story to America. Fast forward, 9/11 happens. I come back to the States and I help to launch the Africa channel, which you can currently see on some of the cable systems here. But here's the heartache. We got the channel on the air. It happened through hard work and perseverance. But then what went wrong? I failed. I had failure. I had a difference of opinion with some of the investors that were involved. We didn't have African investors behind it. Somebody asked me earlier what went wrong. That was it. The agenda was different. I almost felt like Steve Jobs. You get kicked out of your own company because there is a point of difference. But what happens when you get kicked out of your own company and you've just got to, your face is in the dirt? Do you stay down or do you get up and do it all over again? So 4 years ago, I decided there was nothing that was going to stop this quest, this vision, this mission. Start again. Which brings me to where we are today. After 4 long years, at a tremendous cost to my family, by the way, I decided that I needed to do this and do it right. So I just came back from South Africa last week. We have a bunch of institutions in Southern Africa that want to get behind this and get us moving. Why am I telling you all of this? I am telling you all of this for context and background. Because for Africa to realize its full potential, it needs people like you, it needs people like me. We are going to get it done. We want to amplify the African experience. What is it? There's so many Africans like me that are there. It's about the food. It's about the culture. It's about the fashion. It's about the tragedy. It's about the politics. It's about the laughter. It's about the music. There is no place like Africa on this planet. And I always like to take the opportunity to let people know that before you leave this planet voluntarily or involuntarily, you need to make a trip to Africa. You will not come back the same person. And I know my time is getting tight. I've been reduced to a 9-minute soundbite, but very, very quickly. The time that I came to the United States in the mid-70s, I had the good fortune of being taken in by a family in a little town called Westville, Indiana. And in Westville, Indiana, population 3,000, I was the only African, I was the only black in that school. Student body 800. But what was going on in 1977? Very interesting, which leads itself to the power of this. America was glued to their television screens and they were watching something called Roots. So I wind up in this little town in Westville, Indiana, and I plunk myself there. I was their Kunta Kinte. They opened up and embraced me, and that's when I also figured out America needs the communication from Africa. Africa needs to connect with America. And maybe part of my journey will give me the opportunity to someday maybe help build that bridge. I'm living out loud. That is my vision. That is my quest. And I ask you to join me in that journey of building that bridge between here and Africa. I love you for being here. Thanks for your attention. And if you want to find out more about this, I'm here all day. Thank you.